can even have one person disagree and still
still can
pass
have-
something. So
You
that's-
will
that's
have
a good
5.
one. And we will have 5 when Pete finishes his
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, that's right.
So, which is all good. So, Nick, thanks for the agenda. I would propose, I think, and Rich has suggested, that we move the old business, the wetland discussion, to the end of the agenda. That's okay? Yeah, we're okay with that. And Carla is here. I would propose that we deal with Carla's permit first, and then, so we're basically doing everything in reverse order. We're doing this for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I was really next time.
So let's do that. So, Gary, do you wanna lead us through?
Oh, you find it?
Okay,
So, Carla, the address is 325 Smithville Road, Sandy Lake. And they wanna do an addition to an existing camp. I have here the survey plan, if you guys recall, Carla condominiumized all these camps some time ago.
yes.
Carla, you wanna show them which camp it is?
Just put it down here, just so George doesn't have to walk his spot.
That one? Hold on.
It's,
It's this one, cause it's got a little porch
yes,
outside.
yep. That is it.
So you got some drawings that shows what the addition she wants to do,
Yeah, it's on the back here.
which includes putting a frost wall under it as well.
So is this the outlet of
Yep.
Salmon?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it shows there's a septic,
There's a septic here,
yeah, there's a septic.
utility pole there.
Yeah.
and
The
there's a
only thing
septic
I
right
didn't
here.
see is how far is it from the water?
It's on there somewhere. There's a site
No,
plan,
I didn't see it.
I didn't see it
myself.
either.
I don't have a
Well-
site there.
we can scale it, that's why she brought in the survey.
Yeah, 'cause I wasn't sure about how,
1 inch equals 50 feet, so it's not much, it's probably, I don't have a scale.
So this is a condo, there's not a specific lot for this?
No, each one owns this plat around them.
And you own the overall acreage in common?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. There's 7 acres total, and I think my surveyor, we deciphered it that there's 5.5 acres within shoreland zone.
Yeah, cause it goes way up here.
Yeah, I'm all the way down,
Mhm.
yeah.
So the addition's gonna be pushing
It's
100
on the-
feet.
Yeah,
Anyways, right?
it's actually, we measured to the back of the camp and it's like 77 feet,
To the back.
yeah. So then it-
77 feet from the water?
Yep.
Yeah,
Um,
Let me go see what I can find. for
Tall
that.
Pines, is that the one that,
Soon as you go,
oh, I'm in the wrong, you're right.
This is
on
the
main
dam.
gra- Okay, okay.
yep, this is the dam
Yeah.
and this is, yep, the main
Yeah,
house
okay.
and then another camp in front. And
Okay.
these two are in back.
Yeah.
And then the other Tall Pines Lane is right at the end of this
Alright.
condominium, it goes down in.
Yeah, I'm familiar with all the camps down at the other end.
Down at the
I
other
was
end.
in the wrong, I was
Wrong
thinking
end.
we were at the wrong end.
Wrong end, yeah.
So the closest corner of the building is 42 feet.
I was thinking it was around 45,
Mhm.
but like I said, I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how to get the exact measurement.
Yep.
Is the back end of the building gonna make it to 100?
No, it'll, 77 now,
Yeah,
It's all within.
it's all within 100, so she knows she's limited to the 1,000 square feet.
My concern was if it's, wait, if it gets over, it's gonna, some of it will be beyond 75,
All the new part will be,
yes.
pardon me?
all the new part will be.
Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure we didn't have more than 1,000 feet within 75 feet of the water.
No,
Because when you add it all together, ignoring where the
Yeah.
addition, it's over 1,000 by
Right.
60 feet. or
there's no addition within 75 feet.
Alright. other question,
I've got photos if you wanna see.
Well, we have some photos.
Oh, they copied them for you? Yeah.
We got some colored ones.
Yeah. Right, yes, basically,
Oh, okay.
this is it, this is the side view from the front. Back, this is where the addition would go, right here. And there's a pole here and a septic, it's drawn out on there, like a septic here and another one over on the other side. And this is the other side, the lake side.
So quickly, Pete, to try to catch you up to speed on this, so Carla is proposing, or requesting to add on to this particular condo, where there's a plat here that is owned by that owner. It would be going back this way, away from the water,
Yep.
where Salmon Lake is here in the
Yep,
outlet.
okay.
You know, it was real simplified, so I missed a lot of detail, so
Sorry.
if there are more questions, we can ask.
So all the expansion is away from the water.
Yeah.
Yes,
One point of clarification, based on the drawing footprint is different than the footprint on the front page, in terms of the numbers. The drawing footprint is an addition of 320 square feet, and it's 285 on the front page.
Which one is it?
So I guess the question is, which is it?
it's the 16 by 20.
Yeah.
In front, you have 15 by 19,
So look at
the front
Sorry.
page.
I was gonna
Oh, I
say-
see where you're.
Probably you need to change this to be consistent with the drawing.
Oh, okay, that was, I believe, when I asked Gary, I thought this was like the inside. This is the outside measurement, and that would be the
Oh,
inside.
okay, this is
deducting
floor
the
area
wall.
versus footprint.
Yeah,
Okay, so we need to, do you see what I'm talking about, Gary?
Yeah, I
yeah,
do
I
now.
was confused when you told me that,
Okay.
and I put it down,
So
that the
change,
actual size of the interior after you take out the walls.
so change whatever he wants you to change.
Yeah, I can, should I
We're
just
gonna
change?
do
Yeah,
it.
on the original.
On the
On the
original.
original,
Yeah, and then
change
you
it
can
to
just
the,
initial it.
This is the
Okay.
original right here.
okay, so I should just change this over to 16 by 20?
Yeah,
Yep, want a pen?
and initial it and date it, Cal.
Okay, yeah, I was just confused, cause I thought it was the inside. Okay, you want the original, Gary?
Yeah.
Are you gonna be, the frost walls, is that for the entire camp or just the addition?
The entire camp,
The entire camp?
yeah,
But it's, they're only lifting it about 2 feet on the back and about
1 foot on
1
the
foot
front,
on the water side.
yeah.
it does however call for, it hits the point of, where it says, when a new or enlarged or replacement foundation is constructed under a non-conforming structure, the structure and new foundation must be placed such a setback requirements met to the greatest practical extent, and foundation includes a frost wall. The question is, can it be moved back at all? I don't know.
And she's a little bit limited because it's in that plat, although the new addition goes out beyond that plat a little bit. So
Okay, so,
she will probably come back to the planning board at a later date and amend the subdivision plan to make that plat around that camp a little bigger. If she moves outside the plat,
so structures aren't allowed outside the plat for that?
not unless you amend the plan.
Yeah, right. So that was, okay, I see that, so that was a subdivision approved by this board at some point in the
Yes.
past?
Yeah.
Yes,
It's the dates on it, I don't know what it is. It's right there.
It's a while ago.
Can we approve something
it's
that
back like 10
doesn't
years ago.
comply with the plat or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, wouldn't you wanna get the plat done first, then come and get the permit? You get the order mixed up, right?
But she was gonna change the plat when she had a buyer for the condo. She hasn't sold any of them yet.
What was that again, Gary? I'm sorry.
She will change the plat when she sells that condo. She hasn't sold any of these yet.
Oh, okay, so
Right,
you're the
right.
subdivider.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm the
okay, I'm
subdivider.
sorry, I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Yep,
So, still you get back to the point where you gotta change the plat first, and then you do whatever you want later on. Right? I mean, you can't do it now, right? Because the plat,
I'm not an expert on that, but my initial thinking was, how can you get a permit to do something that doesn't comply with our subdivision approval?
so that's another issue. Right.
Pardon me?
That's a single issue there, that's one issue, right?
Yeah, well, I think that was the issue you were talking about, correct?
Or the plat, right?
Yeah,
So that's,
right.
so that's, okay, so, let's get the discussion going. So,
Right, so I think what Rich is saying is in line with your point, in that the subdivision ordinance allows for things to occur within things that are owned, right? So plats, for example. I think my question would be, well, if the subdivider owns all of this, has not sold anything, is there anything to prohibit the owner, the subdivider, to,
Change it. I don't know.
But, you know, I was thinking of this, you know how in the, commercial development review ordinance, there's a finding we have to make that it's in conformance with all other town ordinances? I don't see anything among the findings that we have to make here that's comparable. Unless somebody else can point it out to me.
so a finding in the subdivision ordinance?
No, finding that if, for us to be able to approve a shoreline zoning ordinance, it has to be in conformance with all other town ordinances.
Oh,
Shoreline zoning application,
Yeah,
use of ordinance.
yeah, application, I'm sorry, yeah, no, not ordinance. Because if you go to page 66, the findings of fact that we were presumably making,
66 of what, shoreline zoning?
yeah,
Okay, all right.
so I'm just wondering if it matters
Matters what?
that, that she's extending a little bit beyond the plat as shown on the subdivision, approved subdivision plan. I mean, it might be in violation of the subdivision ordinance,
Maybe,
but that's a separate issue.
it is,
The question is, can we approve it despite that?
right.
right,
Yeah.
because what your
I
point
don't
is
think it
here,
does say specifically that has to meet other town ordinances.
And obviously, if she finds a buyer for this, she knows she's gonna obviously move the line. Cause a piece of it is
I
gonna
mean,
be,
we could,
a piece
if,
of it will be in the common area.
if others agree with that point of view, then that would allow us the option to approve this with a condition that,
the plat be changed.
yeah, the subdivision be amended accordingly in a
Mhm.
X period of time.
Mhm.
Yep.
so
I'm okay with that, it kind of covers it to make sure it happens.
So to talk this out a little bit, so on page 4 of the shoreline zoning ordinance, where it says section 7, conflicts with other ordinance, does that address any of your concern at all, or does that not?
I didn't see it.
Imagine that. I've got on page 4, section 7.
Seven, conflicts with, whenever a provision of this ordinance conflicts with or is inconsistent with another.
Because that just talks about the more restrictive provision. shall be
Yeah,
followed.
I think
I'm not
that's
sure.
more like if, say, the sign provisions in here conflicted with the sign provisions in the commercial development review ordinance, the more stringent of the two applies.
And that makes sense, so
Yeah.
I would say then the answer to my question is that this does not address your initial question.
No, I don't think so. I mean, at least that's my opinion.
So that would then lend us, or perhaps if we agree, allow us to have the latitude to have a conditional approval on this.
I'd be happy with that. It's gonna make sure it gets done.
Right, right. And that would be the goal. So Pete, does that make sense?
Now it does.
It does, it was good to talk it out, right?
So, but that still gets back to, with regard to the frost wall, I think there are two issues. The one that Rich mentioned, which has to do with whether or not it needs to be moved back. And the second issue is whether or not a DEP certified contractor is required, because in all likelihood, more than a cubic yard of soil is gonna be disturbed. And none is provided at this point. So I think that raises two issues that we have to grapple with.
David Stevens is doing it. I don't have his
So-
number, but I know he has one.
But that can
So
be done with a
we can easily
condition.
deal with that.
That could be a
Yeah.
condition. Condition.
Yeah, we could deal with that with a condition. So that gets us back to the more substantive issue.
The
It
frost.
doesn't need to be moved back.
Right.
Why does it have to be raised?
Cause it's sunk right in the dirt.
Yeah,
If you look at
there-
these photos, the siding's buckling right off that. One of those photos will show you.
Yeah,
The siding on the corner is buckling.
Alright, so
Yeah, we're
So-
basically,
what's, I think we can be reasonable about it. I mean, it's sunk in the ground over, well, before, it was at the right height, right? You know, it was higher before, wasn't it?
it
Before
has
it's sunk.
sunken into
It's-
the ground,
it's just-
yes, the
it's-
front is probably,
It's sitting on posts and the silt, the posts are rotten and the silt's right in the
So
bottom.
when it was originally built, what was the
Yeah.
height back then? You know, roughly, you know.
Not much higher than it is now.
Well, the height's not an issue.
Right.
I mean, you know, well, it wasn't sinking into the ground, right? So it brings it up.
Well, it hasn't sunk 3 feet.
All right, so so they wanna, so they
Maybe
wanna
6
raise it 3 feet?
no, we
No,
wanna
they don't-
raise it a foot,
they
so
All right,
it'll,
so it's probably a foot anyways above the ground when it was originally built.
Yeah,
Now it's sunk down because of the mud and all this, right?
yeah.
So why should the property owner get penalized?
I don't know what you're talking about. How
Well,
would-
you're saying that,
right, he's
you
saying.
know,
that
because you're
maybe
raising it.
I'm being.
No, I'm not
wrong.
raising it.
Yeah.
It says if you're adding a foundation, you need to look at whether you can move it back.
How do you define a foundation?
Even a slab, Peter, is a foundation.
That's a foundation?
Yes,
Frost wall,
slab,
slab,
even a slab.
All right,
and so that's, is that under the greatest practical extent, moving it back?
Yes.
apart?
okay, so what's impractical moving it back?
Well, I
She'd have to make that plat a lot bigger, and which takes away from the common area,
All right,
all right?
okay,
She'd have to relocate 2 septic systems and a utility pole that is shown on the plan behind the building.
okay, well, that's,
So, and that,
that's,
you brought up before, you said
Yes.
this is where,
yeah,
the point
when
of
you
it-
said that before, I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on what was back there.
Yeah.
There's a,
There's the
There's a
utility
clear-
pole.
Right here.
there's a septic right here, okay? And there's one right here,
Another septic there,
right here.
right there,
And this is the unit we're talking about?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And the drive goes right
Yeah, and
between all of
and
them,
this is the driveway,
yeah.
it goes
Yeah.
circular.
And so how much space between here and the driveway and that utility pole?
Let me
About-
see,
Looks to be about the same.
Same as from the
distance
lake.
setback.
35 or 40 feet, probably. Where's 50? From the driveway?
What's the required setback?
30
from
feet?
the Utility,
good estimate, Gary.
how much?
30.
30?
Setback from the utilities, 15.
So there's only 15 feet to play with.
Yeah.
So then the question.
Well,
about-
there isn't even, because that's where the addition goes, and that comes out 60.
Oh,
Right,
Well-
it'll come out 16 feet.
oh,
So,
okay, just answered my question.
so to be clear, I think the answer is, there's none.
I had to do the higher math.
Yeah, Sam had measured that too, and I forgot to write that in. I had Sam measuring everything. I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
wait a minute, go over here and measure from here to here, and measure from here to here. and-
There you go.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the question being kind of, is there a way to move this back to the greatest practical extent by talking about the now higher math that George has brought forward? I think would be in a deficit of -1, based on my calculations. So
Yeah,
I think the
'cause-
answer is no.
This addition's 16 feet long, and it has to be 15 feet from that utility.
Does that utility?
So that's the 30 feet that you measured,
Yeah,
the combination of the two.
yeah, does that utility just feed that building?
Yes. It's off to the side a little more though than where the addition is. I don't know what the exact measurement, 'cause I think when Sam measured it was 15 feet off the edge of the driveway and the pole sits to the left a little further, so I don't know the exact.
I was down there, it didn't seem to me that if you come out 16 feet, you're only a foot from that pole.
No, we aren't. It's more to the left.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I don't think the pole is an issue.
So is there a line that goes from that pole?
I guess just to this building?
Yeah,
I guess just, so it's not a power line.
Oh, it's not power line.
And I guess that's what I asked. She said
Yeah.
it just goes to this
just goes to
structure.
this one,
Okay.
yeah.
Say it just goes where?
To this building,
This building,
it's not a power line.
yeah.
Therefore, I'm not sure.
Supplies power to the building, but it's
Yeah.
not for more than one.
Right.
If that's the
right.
case, I'm not so sure it has to even be 15 feet.
Mhm.
I know from a power line it does.
Right.
Yeah, 'cause I know.
The
when
line
Sam-
going to that pole, is that owned by you or CMP?
By me, I believe,
Must be by her, it's on her private property.
yeah.
Right, just like one going from the road to my house, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I would think.
But even still, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think the pole's an issue, and we have the road right there, and we've gotta be a certain distance from the road anyways, so she can't move it back. Correct? That's right away,
How far is it from the road?
30 feet, so by the time they put the addition, they're gonna be 15 feet,
And what's the setback?
31 feet.
If the road is that close, I'd say, yeah, probably correct. You don't want
Yeah.
So, I don't think it can be moved back, so I'm fine with where it is.
So let's talk this out. So if we stay where it is and add the addition as proposed, then the new back wall would be how far from the road? If
Well, it sounded like approximately 15 feet, but we don't have the exact measurement. But it would
Right.
have to be whatever our setback, what we decide on our setbacks, I can't quite remember.
Neither can
I don't know, Craig, really, if,
I don't think they'd even call it counts as a road, though.
no, it's
Yeah,
a,
that's
it's
more
a,
like-
it's a little
Yeah,
driveway.
it's a
that serves
driveway.
all this
Driveway that
campus, so
goes
it's
to
really
the
not a
other
road.
cottage, yeah.
It's a
not
driveway.
official.
It's really not a road,
It's a driveway,
yeah.
yeah.
That's right, yeah, you're right.
It'd be different if we were coming off Tall Pines, cause that's an official road
Right.
or
Right.
other.
Right.
This is just to accommodate all the camps,
Right,
Mhm.
right,
yeah.
so if it's not a road, just a driveway, then it would be, the back wall of the new addition would be approximately.
But even
15
still,
feet.
you can't move that road
No, because of the septic, that's
because of
why
the
they
septic
were
and
worried
the other
about the
place
septic.
behind it. So that road's where it is. So by the time an addition goes on, you still can't really move that back any. So it's not practical to move it.
Right, I don't think there's any question about that anymore. I think we're all good with the fact that it's not practical to move back, at least in my opinion. I don't
Yeah,
see
but,
it.
you know, Craig just clarified.
Yeah, which is great.
Yeah.
And so now, I
Rich,
don't
how do
think,
you feel about it?
I'm fine if it's 15 feet or whatever it is.
and we,
Even if we looked at it even closer, or, probably the best you could do is 5 feet or something like that. It's probably not, make it just that much more complicated.
right,
Now, but do you have, or just, if you don't have, I would suggest, correct me if I'm wrong, but you probably will need a permit by rule from the DEP for the soil disturbance within 75 feet of the water.
so it sounds like.
If
a
you have a
third-
certified contractor, he'll probably tell you that too.
Dave, you say.
I was waiting until to
Yeah.
see if I got the approval before I talked to David further to.
So that's gonna be a
whatever I
condition or
need
what?
for permits.
We should, we make that a condition.
Yeah,
Mhm.
sounds
Permit by
like-
rule, that's nothing to do with us.
Well, If she doesn't get it,
It's nothing to do with us.
well, let's
That's
talk.
DEP.
Yeah, well, let's say she doesn't get it.
It's nothing to
Then-
do with
then-
us.
Okay, then, all right, then she's at risk with DEP, right? Not us,
Well, she is, not us.
right?
Well,
Well, yeah, is that
definitely
right?
get whatever I need
Okay.
for
I
permits.
think Craig's probably right here, is that
Yeah.
we've warned you or told you you need one.
And I would definitely go
And-
through whatever channels I need to do to make it
Yeah.
right.
In order to sell it.
We do
you need
require
to
the
do it right.
certified contractor, that's in the ordinance, but the other
Yeah.
part really isn't.
Right. We're hashing this
That
out.
should be a condition.
You're already on public record saying you're gonna do it, so.
We're good.
Yeah.
I have a question for the board about not only this application, but the next one and others that may come along in the future, but this is a non-conforming structure, right?
Yep.
And we're about to probably prove an addition to one. So, is the site plan for this have to be submitted to the Registry of Deeds? There's a requirement on page 11, paragraph D, an approved plan for the expansion of a non-conforming structure must be recorded by the applicant with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval. The recorded to scale plan must show the existing and proposed footprint of the non-conforming structure, the existing and proposed structure height, the footprint of any other structures on the parcel, the shoreline zone boundary, and evidence of approval by the municipal review authority. That would be us.
I've never heard of that, is that new? Cause the registry of deed files that deed, I mean, say that plan, but like a subdivision plan, it doesn't show buildings on it, there are no buildings on it. So at a later date, you've gotta file an amended plan that shows
Well,
where
just-
your building is?
Just because it's in shoreline zoning.
Is that new though?
I can't remember.
It
I don't,
hasn't been in there before.
I've never
I
heard
think
of
so, yeah. I think that's in the state minimum.
I was gonna say, if
That's where it came
if
from.
it's there and it wasn't before, it's because it was in the state minimum. It was certainly nothing that I would have thought of putting in on my own.
Yeah. so-
Well, I mean, and that's simple, because when that plat gets amended to accommodate for this addition, that plan gets registered at the registry of deeds anyway.
Right,
This is
except
already
that this
been
would have to
registered.
also include our approval of the non-conforming structure, so it would have to show, you'd have to also register the approved permit.
Okay.
That's a very good point, because this is new territory for us, and I'm glad we brought this up. And really, every time we look at a non-conforming structure in the future, we
Yeah,
should
no,
be,
we'll have to bring this up.
yeah, coming back to this.
Those are the only structures you look at.
Well, it is, right, so it's everyone, right?
So you got a point.
Okay, so what's that say? That any portion of those structures located less than 75 feet from the normal high water mark, and if that's 77 feet,
There's nothing added within 75.
Right,
there's nothing added within 75.
so I wouldn't have to.
Where are you reading, Craig?
It's on page 11.
Okay.
Am I in the wrong
Right.
spot?
Because I think where he was from
D,
D,
paragraph D.
yeah, that's this stuff.
That's,
That has to be new guideline language.
Yeah.
And evidence of approval, so
I
we
didn't
have
Find
to
it out
approve
when I
it.
get home and see it.
Wasn't in the old ordinance, I don't know.
Craig,
So we
you're
have to
right.
approve it before
Yeah,
she can do it,
You
so
are
she'd have
correct.
to come right back in quickly to move your boundary within that 90 days, right?
Okay, so basically I just have to have it surveyed out, extend the plat, and then,
I'd go to the same survey that did that
Yeah,
originally.
yeah.
I don't think she's worried about doing that in 90 days, I
Oh,
think
no,
she just
no,
wants to
I
get
can
started on this
contact him
addition
tomorrow and,
before fall gets here.
yeah,
That's all.
because right now it's like that back corner is really bad and it's getting worse.
Yeah.
We found a lot of moisture in that corner and we haven't even been able to rent this camp
I mean, to
because
meet
of all the
this,
moisture.
she could just, register the shoreline zoning stuff separately.
Yeah,
If you don't wanna redo the subdivision within 90 days.
you might as well do it all at the same time.
Might
I
as
would
well.
think, wouldn't you?
That would make the most sense, but I'm just saying, if you don't
Just
want,
do
if
that.
you don't wanna hire a surveyor to redo that plan in 90 days.
I just as soon do it right away, so it's all
Oh,
done
okay, I
and
see, I'm
correct.
sorry, all right.
You know what I
I
mean?
don't think
All right.
that's an
Yeah,
expensive
that-
change.
I mean, that would be the most efficient.
Yeah, I'd like it to be as quick and done
Done.
immediately, yeah.
Once the survey changes it, you gotta come back to the board so they can,
Right, so then I'd contact you as soon as he
Yep.
drew out the new plans,
I mean,
okay?
it shouldn't be a big deal, I
no,
wouldn't
I
think.
wouldn't think so, it's
That'd
just.
be-
Now it's adding whatever the footage. So
Mhm.
what is the footage gonna be required now that if we do the addition for the plat, you only need 10 feet around the,
That's what I do, yeah, that's what you've done
just
on
do,
all the other
right,
ones.
so
Yeah.
I just
Make it the
eh,
same.
do the extension and then add another 10 feet,
So it's
okay?
26 feet.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm all good with that, I'll contact him right away.
Okay. Are there other questions or concerns about this particular permit application? Because I'm thinking there are at least one, if not two, conditions that will be forthcoming. One for sure, I know.
I will make a motion that we approve the application as submitted with the condition that before work begins, a certified contractor number must be submitted to Gary, who will do the project. And secondly, that plot plan, amended plot plan of the subdivision be submitted to Gary before work begins.
Stormwater?
Third
Stormwater.
one.
I thought you, wait a minute, I thought you said she had 90 days to do amended plan.
I don't, did we say something about 90 days?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you read it in the ordinance.
That was for the,
For bringing it to the registry of deeds.
Oh, within 90 days.
I thought we had talked about this, and the whole thing was, she doesn't mind doing this, but she'd like to get started on the building,
Right.
and then she'd do it within a reasonable,
Within-
within a
Right.
reasonable timeframe.
Right.
All right, within 90 days of the approval of the project?
Whatever's reasonable.
I mean, she's not gonna be able to sell it until it's
Right,
done
It's
anyways.
fixed,
Right.
or, yeah, right, that.
yeah.
And George had remind me of a third condition, is that all work be accomplished using DEP best management practices for erosion control.
And stormwater management on the addition.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with 3 conditions that we've talked about. I think we have a good handle on those now. Does that make sense, what we
Yes,
talked about?
change the plat, submit,
David's number.
yeah.
And then the other
What
thing,
was
we've got the
third one?
DEP, best management practices for erosion control and stormwater management.
All right.
Those are the 3 conditions.
And that would only apply to the addition as a mandatory requirement.
Right.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the floor with 3 conditions. Do I hear a second? We do. Other questions or comments about this topic before we vote? Carla, do you have any questions for us?
So,
No? Gary, how do you feel about this? I think we're in a good
Yeah, I-
spot with this.
I think so, I've been down there, met with them, looked at it.
Okay? And
The lawn, actually, the lawn's relatively flat right there too.
yes, it is.
Yeah.
There won't be much digging beyond the cabin, it's just basically to hit the frost wall where it's setting in the ground. And on the one side where the steps go up, there's a little bit on that back corner.
right, like this.
And Gary, the front
Yes.
page was corrected.
Yes.
Yep, okay. All right,
Changed
very good.
that
Thank you
initial
for doing
bit.
that.
Okay.
So we've got a motion on the floor, it's been seconded. Any more questions? All right.
I will get a list of all these, I've written them down, but
Okay.
will I also
Yeah,
get
it'll
this
be,
from you? It'll be on
those
this.
conditions will be on my next
Right.
sentence.
Yep.
Okay,
Plus, the stormwater will come with a sort of a educational little brochure thing
okay.
on what
Yeah,
your
I
options
just
are.
wanted- Okay,
Any other
It's all
questions
done
or
properly.
comments for Carla? All those in favor? 5 in favor, none opposed. The permit will be mailed to you.
So this stays with the original.
And this photos too.
Oh, and Peter,
Yes, sir.
Nick has this all filled out for you guys to sign.
Okay.
So you're gonna sign that one? And
Yeah.
you're gonna sign the permit phase, right?
Yeah, and I think who has the original permit?
Exactly. I just gave it to you,
Oh, that's all in here?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
and this goes with it when you're done.
Okay, we'll do.
That's the original.
So we'll be signing this one.
And,
You bet.
and then Nick types the conditions on here.
Yes, sir.
So tomorrow I'll get a hold of David, and you just need his
Yeah, I know.
DEP number.
Yeah, you know, yeah.
Okay. I'll contact him in the morning, and I'll make sure I get that right to you.
Okay.
So I'll pass these guys down the line. Is that okay?
So, okay, I'll just get that number and.
Yep.
I got one.
He can sign it.
Fine.
Good for you.
Using black.
Right, but
Can we
I'll
move?
speak with David first.
Huh?
and
Can it be
He'll
moved?
tell me who to
Sure.
contact through DEP. for
Roger's
that.
not here.
That's what I meant, because I don't really know who to
Yeah.
contact
Yeah.
through DEP.
Guess what,
Yeah.
this is Pat's lacking.
I recommend don't putting one on top of the other when you sign it, Pete.
Okay,
Do you know who contacted permit by roll down at DEP?
Changes quite
Just
often.
Natural Resources Division of.
Yeah, the land division, or whatever, land bureau.
Division.
receptionist down there, she'll know.
Yeah, they'll have somebody on call, like they're saying, there's a different person on every day, so
Permit,
he gets assigned.
Yeah.
permit,
Phone duty.
DEP land division.
Are they staffed up
Correct.
again down there?
I think so, Pete.
So they'll probably just come out
Thank you,
with a
gentlemen.
site visit.
I want to put these all together with the photos that we received and the other documents that
You know,
we have.
David's thorough with everything,
So
so,
that's number.
yeah.
So Gary, everything's back together again here.
Okay, I'm just gonna, when I leave tonight, I'll put it on Nick's desk
Okay.
in this folder.
Thank you very much. Carla, good luck with the
Well, thank
project.
you all very much.
It was a
Appreciate
treat.
all your time.
Nice to see you, everybody.
Thanks,
Yeah.
good seeing you.
Take care though. Keep Sam busy.
Oh,
Excellent. Next on the agenda, we have the building permit for BPS Construction. Sir, is that you? Fantastic. You want to lead us through this one? Gary.
Yes, let's see. It's 12 Pinehurst Camp Loop. They wanna add a second floor to this building structure. Map 26, lot 13-4. The owner is Greg and Stephanie Rothschild. What else? There's a write-up here of everything they wanna do. Do you have this? Okay.
Let's see. And you're from BPS, correct? And your name again, I'm sorry?
name's Bill.
Bill?
Yep.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming in tonight. So, do you mind if we ask you some questions about this as we go forward?
I didn't think that I had to be here tonight, so I came from southern Maine and rushed up here, so
Oh,
I'm
no.
washing my hands, I know you guys have it all, so hopefully I can answer all your questions.
We'll try to do this.
You want one in your hand?
No, I think I know pretty much what. I've done it.
Gary, what lake are we on?
Long Pond.
Long,
Yeah.
the upper north,
Long Pond.
It's Pinehurst Loop.
Yeah, so where,
I can't remember either.
just beyond Johnson's camps,
Okay.
Where?
just before the
It's just-
rolling line.
Just beyond Gilman Loop.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
right after the dam.
Yeah,
and then-
okay. Yep.
You go through the village,
right, the dam and the causeway, then you have old Johnson's camps, and then you have the old Pinehurst camps.
It-
And this is one of the condos in there.
So it was the Johnson and Gilman?
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
alright, so there's an incline going down the
Yeah.
lake,
It's off the, as you're heading towards Farmington, it's off to your left.
okay.
So,
Is it north of the chiropractor, or used to be in the,
No,
no, it's still closer to
yeah,
the.
otherwise it'd be Rome's problem,
It's
not
just,
ours.
it's like,
Right,
just on the side of the Rome line,
Yeah.
the Rome line is on the other
And
side of
there's
the
a
house.
lot fewer buildings than in Gilman, right? It's smaller than Gilman.
Yes, it is, yeah.
okay, so question, 100 feet to the lake, to where, to the front of the building,
To the plat,
Yeah.
to the plat?
just to the plat, yeah.
So the
Where-
building's further than 100 feet from the lake?
Yeah.
that's straightforward.
Is it shown on the,
That's a measured distance.
It's shown, right?
Well, they measured it, I think we measured it, I hadn't, Gary was out there once, but they had done something else recently on the front of that building,
Oh, okay,
and they had already measured it to that point. And
okay,
so
so,
it
all right,
it's
I was just
on,
curious.
So
I
it's,
always worry when I see plus or minus.
yeah, but then there's
Plus
another
or
10
minus 20
feet.
feet.
Oh,
There's another 10 feet from the plat to the building,
yeah,
so it's 110 feet to the building,
yeah.
plus or minus 42.
Your application says, and I know you're adding a second story, and it says square off building. Can you point out or explain to
Yeah,
me what the squaring off is?
how about I show you, I guess there's probably no place I can send a picture to at this point, is it?
Oh, we've got this drawing here that you could probably show us all.
Oh, right here? Right here?
Is
Yeah.
that what
I
the
was
squaring?
hoping I could just show you.
I wish we had a way to project that, we don't.
But how high is the building gonna be with the, second floor on there?
It says in there,
Don't have his plan.
Where do I take that measurement from, the front or the back?
The front,
Because it slopes off pretty quick.
the lakeside.
The lakeside, so it would be, I think it's still gonna be less than 25 feet.
Should be on Hammond's drawing, his elevation.
I didn't see it.
says install cathedral trusses with maximum roof height of 25 feet to maintain the full flow.
Where'd you find that?
Right on
Just
the,
take a
Oh.
page.
The,
You wanted to show him this?
That picture in here.
Is this it though? That's squaring it off,
I
right?
guess so, yeah. See what the problem is that damn trees right there, and it's growing in under everything. And all I wanna do is just square it off.
How big is that? Where, that's not there then.
Yeah, it's 4 foot by 10 foot,
It says four, it says
4 foot,
by 20.
all could be.
Where-
No,
where is that on this drawing? That's,
Right, 20 feet.
No, you're right.
so is that shown on the drawing that's in the application?
Oh, it shows 20.
It's right here.
Oh, so where the tree is going away and you square it out this way?
Trees
Yes.
growing in under the.
So that might be like here, Bill?
Yes, but he said.
That's what we're
that's an
guessing,
inch,
but it
it's
says
not-
it's 20
it should say
feet, and
10,
that can't
it's
even
10
possibly
feet.
be, that's not 20 feet
I wonder
from there
if
to
it's,
there.
yeah, I wonder if it's,
So you come up
The tree
32 here and 32
right.
there.
too close to the place and was, it's a danger.
So part of the, so part of this is, so you wanna remove that tree
Right.
and you wanna,
Just square that off, right? does it
okay,
say
so
what
this
that-
drawing's gonna have to be,
Does it say what that
revised.
is?
that's 32?
And that'll be 32.
yeah. What's the scale of this? Cause I tried to figure it out and none of these numbers match anything I could come up with for a scale. What's the scale with this.
Well, you know what though, Gary
But,
and Bill, the front
What?
numbers,
I don't know if I
10 and
can-
22 add up to
I'll ask
32.
this again.
yeah.
On the back, 20 and 12 still add up to 32.
Mhm.
So is that, am I thinking it's 32 feet across the front and 32 feet across the back?
Yes, it is.
Mm.
All
It
right.
is, so that.
Again,
them
it's high
numbers-
math here, so, you know.
Then, that's why I was looking at, them numbers are flipped around
I
somewhere.
was gonna say, the way, by that picture looks, the numbers are just in the wrong spot.
Right,
How do you mean, Craig?
Bring that picture back, please. The bigger part is the 20 foot, and the smaller
not.
part
it's not.
Oh, they're flipped
Yeah.
is
east-west,
the 12.
or whatever.
So-
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I see.
Because that looks like 12 feet there behind the tree.
Yeah, I
Correct.
mean, it's not a 20-foot window, and, you know, right, and that one right there behind the tree, it's not a big, I think you're right, Craig. I think Craig hit it.
Yeah, I think they just flipped the numbers are in the wrong spot.
Whoever, who made up these,
Probably my secretary, she
and she's not an engineer, right? So
took
she
the,
prob-
she took everything that I had it drawn out, maybe a quick just sketch of it,
Yeah,
and she tried to neaten it up a little bit, I drew it out on site, she
Okay.
neatened it up a little bit, maybe switched the numbers around. I'm guessing because
okay.
it's the same width in the front as it is in the back.
One thing we'll need to do is have this revised or
Yeah,
whatever.
you can't
so
approve
we're
it like this.
approving it, something that we actually
Yeah,
have.
just totally misleading.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we're gonna have
And
to
while
ask.
we're at it, we should get the, if you could come up with a scale for this, because I tried to figure it out and it
You
didn't
get,
match.
you get some graph paper? So you get some-
Well, that's what this is, it's just that the 1/10 inch squares don't mesh, you know, don't add up to 20 feet and et cetera.
Right, right, but he uses graph paper.
Yeah,
to
right.
Put together.
Yeah, I can do it like
Yeah,
that.
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I guess I'm just trying to figure out, you know, fall's burning here and daylight's burning, and I'm trying to make, I wanna get the trusses ordered, and I wanna find out if I'm kinda, if I'm gonna get it approved based, just contingent off maybe a new drawing, I don't know, is everything else
oh,
on the
I think the basics are here, it's just that it's an incomplete application in my view.
What you need is a scale drawing.
As far as if it's 100 feet back, and everything, then my thinking is, what you're telling us you wanna do is approvable.
Yeah, it's just that this doesn't reflect that.
And as far as the tree is concerned, I'm only speaking for myself. I suppose there aren't a whole lot of other trees around. I would, as a condition, if you were to cut that tree, my recommendation is we approve it with a condition that another tree be planted no further from the
Yeah.
water than that tree, not in the same spot, of course, but
Okay.
somewhere nearby.
They've only got 10 feet to plant a tree around this building. That's all they own. So, right?
Cause it's a,
So you'd be putting another tree right beside the building.
Yeah,
Which is another hazard, because that tree's obviously a hazard.
Pardon me?
Which would be another hazard, because that tree's obviously a hazard being that close.
Unless
So we
everybody
can't.
agrees to allow him to plant a tree on common land.
I thought the new law changed where you didn't have to go planting another tree.
Yeah, you do.
It is? You just grind it, you can't pull the stump out, you can grind the stump down, cut the tree down,
Yeah, but if you
grind
have-
it, and if the trees are a hazard to the people who use the property, guests or the owner or the buildings, it comes down, all right? All right. I didn't know you had to go plant another tree someplace in the lot. What's it talk about in the new,
I don't think it does say that if it's a hazard tree.
yeah,
But
Rich, at the same time,
Rich
simply
was-
because it's a big tree doesn't mean it's a hazard tree.
no, Rich,
Yeah.
Rich
Well,
was
it
so.
is being that close. Something ahead, it's a pine tree, it's the end of life. You can tell by the size of it.
get a good wind.
It makes it a hazard
Oh, yeah.
automatically. I wouldn't want it over my head, a pine tree, one lone pine tree.
So that can't be pulled, the roots and stuff, it just gets grinded.
You can pull it.
No, you can't pull the stump out.
Yes, you can, it's beyond 100 feet.
Oh, it's beyond 100 feet?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
In
if
this
it's beyond
case-
100 feet, that's not gonna be an issue
Right.
anyway.
So,
Okay. I don't think there's gonna be any,
There's no issue in this whole thing.
Yeah.
We can make a condition that you give us a to scale drawing, and we can approve this thing right now and be done with it.
One other deficiency is that we need a letter of authorization from the landowner that he's can represent
Yes, you do
them.
need that as well,
And I'm not comfortable proving it
without,
without
That's fine.
that many
I
deficiencies.
thought we had, and I overlooked that, I guess.
yeah,
That's something we get to.
yeah.
I agree with that.
We had to do that the last time you were here.
I can get her on the phone and,
That's what you had to try to do
Yeah,
last time.
right.
want me to get her on the phone and,
Well, we need it in writing.
okay, I can-
Just have it right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, to answer your question earlier, there's nothing here that, if you come in with those items and, you know, to scale drawings, et cetera, that we can't approve.
Right.
It's just a question that we need to be able to know that we're approving what you're really gonna be doing.
Right.
So,
This has to reflect reality.
so does that mean that I can come back in and see Gary with the new sketches and he can issue me a permit, or I gotta come back to the planning board again?
No, you have to come back here, cause it, well, wait a minute.
We haven't,
This isn't, is this non-conforming?
Not a non-conforming structure.
It is, there is,
Why do we have, because non-conforming lot?
Yeah. You have to come back to the planning board because they're probably gonna table it tonight, which leaves it hanging out there without approval.
right.
If you don't come back with what they ask you,
Right, no, I guess I'm asking a more basic question, why did this come to us in the first
it's
place?
a non-conforming lot.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part there.
It's how big is the property? There's 3 or 4 camps on it?
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
So when is your next planning board meeting?
2 weeks from tonight.
so that would be the 19th, if I'm doing my math right.
Yeah,
So as
So-
far as the to scale drawing, let's get it clear for them. What do you want to scale? This is the existing structure, so you want the existing structure to scale with the lot line around it and
Well-
the distance from the lake.
I mean, that's all provided on this other drawing, isn't it? The only thing that, unless you can calculate the scale, you know, I just don't feel like it's my job to calculate the scale.
No, scale, that's what I'm asking you, what do you want scaled?
Okay, you want the scale from the distance from the lake to the building, and then to the property lines. Now, we could go, you know, one block, and the graph paper equals,
I mean,
You know,
So you
what
want
you
this
wanna
one
make-
right here to scale,
yeah,
that one to scale,
yeah.
your site plan.
You want that to scale, or you just want the building itself?
no,
to
you want,
scale?
No, I want the
Property.
one that,
and the building. Right?
The new
the site
building,
plan, the most important plan to scale is the one that,
this one right here.
that one right there.
Yep.
This one-
Perfect, that's it.
The other one is fine, with the exception of you need to just correct it to show that this part you're squaring off is over here
Okay,
and not over here.
okay. Is that gonna be an issue to square it off, you think?
No.
It really comes down to the tree, and that's not an issue.
No,
It's
you're
not an
beyond
issue.
100 feet.
Okay.
You want
So
photos?
we're working in the right direction, right?
You need photos?
Yeah, oh, yeah, good point, we're gonna need photos.
The photos, this site plan from the lake to where the building
Right.
is, all to scale,
And a letter of authorization.
a letter of authorization.
And
And
you-
we can improve that with a condition to deal with the stormwater
Right.
Mhm.
off the roof.
And Bill, you know what those letters of authorization look like? It would basically be saying, to whom it may concern,
Give me permission to.
Yeah, to represent them
Right.
for us,
It could be an email, copy of an email.
right?
so I have a question, if you don't, if the board doesn't mind.
Just, I just wanna make sure I get it, so you want the site plan to scale, the letter of authorization, and then what?
Pictures.
Pictures, yeah.
Right. And the fourth item would be to correct that drawing.
Okay.
So Bill, my question, Bill, comes up because Roger, who's not here right now, before the meeting started, he was looking at this, and he had a question, so I wanna act as his voice on this.
Good.
So, looking through the second page of this, where there's a list of basically activities that would occur. One of them that Roger brought up, he had a question about where he said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's like the sixth line down, it says, build 2x6 exterior walls. His question really is, well, if you're building exterior walls, does that mean the other ones are coming down? That's really what he was asking.
No, it's the 2x4, existing right now is 2x4. We're putting engineered floor trusses on. And then above that, we're gonna do all 2x6 exterior
So the new
instead of
construction.
2x4 exterior.
So that clarifies, which makes great sense, but that was his question.
What
so
was his
give-
question, I'm sorry?
So that's okay. So, Roger was wondering about where it says build 2x6 exterior walls. He was wondering, does that mean that some other walls are coming down? But Bill clarified and said it's only on the new construction
Oh, yeah.
part
Yeah.
up above. But that was his question.
So now I have a question to that. Would it matter?
Maybe not, you know,
Because it's 100 feet back?
that's a good point, yeah.
They could tear it right down and rebuild it.
They could, but it's a good point. Okay, so, Bill, you know where we're coming from on this, you know, in order to have a complete application, we're looking for the things that we've outlined and given to you, is that correct?
Yep, I got it.
You know where we're going?
Yep.
And then, does the board have other questions for?
Yeah, I just want, no, I have a question, I just wanna point out, you know, you could bring the building higher than, what's the height of the building? I mean,
25 is where the
he could go to
one is.
30, he could go to the max,
You could
35,
go to 35, I don't think.
if you wanted to.
I don't think
He
it was.
hasn't
You
decided
pitch it,
either.
make more, looking at the pitch here, you know, looks kind of flat roof to me, so you can pitch it, you go up to the, make a higher pitch, make a 12 pitch.
So what is my height for just the base?
35, yeah, on the
Yeah. Once you're 100 feet back, it's 35 feet.
Richard, George, do you have any other comments or questions for the applicant? So, knowing that we have an incomplete application that we've spoken to Bill about, that we still need some data to have a complete application, I would entertain a motion to table.
Yeah, I was gonna, I make a motion to table the application until it's complete.
Okay,
Second.
and second. Any other questions? All those in favor? 5 in favor, none opposed. Bill, thank you for coming up tonight.
Yeah.
I heard you loud and clear when you said you had to rush up here.
No, it's
Come
fine.
do this.
I was coming back here anyway, but I just didn't, I guess I wasn't aware that I had to be here for this one. I know I did one before, which is important that I was here, but
Yes, and we appreciate your time to come in,
Wow.
we really do.
As it turned out, it was good that you were here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I know you guys got a lot of things to cover, but I just got a question for you.
Yeah.
I recently just did an application for a permit in Naples. And I've been building for 25 years now, and I've never heard of this one. And I wanna know if you guys have heard of it, if it's something new within the state, or if it's a town deal for them. But I'm doing a 28 by 40 garage, not connected to anything, and they're making me put it on a frost wall.
Making it?
And it's in the shoreline zone?
No. It's not,
Oh, no, it's just out in the,
Building code doesn't require that.
She said the legislature passed a law 2 months ago saying that anything over 400 square feet,
I've never seen that.
she will budge.
Tell her to show it to you, did she show you the law?
Well, the homeowner looked online and seen where they just passed it a couple months ago.
I wasn't aware of that.
That's why I'm asking.
Oh, the legislature
Did you?
passed it,
Yeah.
or?
You say the homeowner said that, or is it the code enforcement officer who's telling you?
I submitted the permit
Uh-huh.
with doing it with a 6-inch slab with a 12-inch haunch, you know, been doing it that way for a long time. I submitted the application to her, she said one thing, she said, if you want this permit, she said, you gotta put a frost wall in. I said, it's a garage, it's not even attached to anything, can I put foam underneath it? Nope. 4-foot frost wall.
Jeez,
Well, you gotta go back to her and ask for the documentation that supports what she's saying.
No, he said he saw it online.
You saw it
The
online?
homeowner went online and looked, the
And
homeowner
saw
just.
I wonder if it's in certain districts, the location,
I don't know.
the further north you get,
Well, yeah, you're probably gonna get a hold of a hard copy for yourself, but you're gonna be building there.
You think, yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, it certainly drives the cost up.
But to you, to what you're saying is do you think the further you go north, the more they would support that?
Right, yeah, be a,
well,
Maybe it's
the
statewide.
further you go north though, the less, population has the money to be able to do that. So there's,
You think that's what it is? You think they're,
you're not going by climate, you're going by money.
well, it's true.
no, I know, yeah, I know what you're
It's
saying.
less
but-
populated, and the population, I mean, why don't we have all these strict rules that a lot of people?
Well, one of the things is you go further north,
Why aren't we licensed, is what I'm getting at.
as you go further north and you have less population, you don't even need to adopt the building code, the new building code.
Right,
Right,
We use it here in Belgrade, we don't have to use it in Sydney. Population.
Yeah.
that's why I was
If
saying
you're in
it's by district.
Augusta, for example, you
And
have
it's
to use
maybe
it, right?
through the town.
Any place over 4,000 population.
I think that's the number, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's Naples population?
Oh, that'd be over 4,000.
yeah, no, it's gotta be over 4,000, so it must be that uniform building code, I think might have been changed.
Yeah. Supposedly, there's a new law that's going to be passed that says no matter what your population, you've gotta follow the MUBEC building code. But there's a caveat that says the town doesn't have to enforce it if they choose not to.
So
What's
that's
the
what
point of
she's
that?
doing. She's enforcing it. Cause they got more money.
Yeah.
Is that why, more people in Massachusetts and out of state get more moose permits than the people in Maine?
Possibly.
So come up here and spend some of their money?
But that's a big driving force of not being licensed up here is the population, and, I mean, they couldn't enforce a licensed contractor up in northern Maine. I mean, and who the hell could afford to pay a licensed
Right.
contractor, cause it's
Right.
gonna drive the cost up.
Right.
You think the state cares about that?
And are they gonna pay somebody to go up there and enforce it?
Right?
We do a lot of work for people from out of state, and that's the first thing they have to go and do research on us, and they think to themselves, what do you mean you're not licensed?
Yeah.
Is everybody down there is,
Well, they have to be.
get beyond New Hampshire?
It's a different world.
I get calls from building contractors all over the state.
Yeah.
They'll call me up and say, I did a project in Belgrade and you told me I had to comply with this out of the building code, but now I'm in a different community and they're telling me I've gotta do something different than what you told me. I said, listen, I read it to you right in the book. I can't help it. If code enforcement officers around different towns in the state
Yeah,
interpret it different,
right.
okay? And I see it all the time, all the time. You go to one town, you need styrofoam under a slab. You go to another one, no, you don't need that. So,
Well, I've been down in, Waterboro trying to get a building permit for a garage for 4 months now. And you've got 3 different people you gotta go through. You gotta go through the Saco River corridor, you gotta go through Waterboro, and you gotta go through Lake Arrowhead. They all have to approve it.
What was the last one?
Like Arrowhead.
Lake Arrowhead.
Is that an association or conservation group or something?
Well, Saco River corridor is,
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
that one, but, I didn't
I
know
don't
that.
know, I just know it's a mess, and they're pretty strict down there, so I appreciate you guys.
that's when you tell the homeowners, call me when you get your permit.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and, look forward to seeing you hopefully on the 19th, right? The 19th.
Same time?
Yep, I would offer that you recommend to contact Gary to make sure
Yeah, I
that
will.
we're all good.
I will.
Okay.
Agenda.
You'll be on old business, so you'll probably be the first one.
Yeah,
Right,
that's about the
yeah,
best.
you be old business.
Yeah.
I'd be interested if you guys run across that anywhere, and next time I come back in, that, the law about the new law that was passed about the frost wall.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So 'cause I've never heard of it.
We hadn't seen it.
My jaw was down to here, cause I didn't see that one coming,
No, no,
yeah.
no.
Okay, guys, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright.
Thanks, drive carefully.
Peter, I have a question that relates to some of what we've been just dealing with respect to this application. Didn't we come up with instructions and revise the application so to kind of avoid the problems we had tonight? And if so, what happened to that?
Yeah, we
What's that,
revised.
is that the old application?
So we're trying to use up the old ones,
No,
is
I
that
don't
it?
know, you'd have to ask Nick, I didn't think so,
Have we got the new ones yet?
that I don't know either, I'll have to ask
So I
Nick.
don't know if
You
we,
have to check with Nick, because
I
you're right.
just feel bad that, he doesn't know what's expected of him.
Well, you know what, he tried to make a phone call at the last meeting
Yeah.
to get authorization, so he should have known that, do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember actually, now that you mention it, yeah.
He was on the phone for a half hour, trying to get a date, so
Yeah.
he should have remembered that one.
But, there's a list of things that are in the ordinance that a site plan needs to have, and,
I'm gonna have to remind Nick, cause I think sometimes he doesn't hand out that instruction sheet, just like,
cause the
I
fact
see.
is, I have a hard time sometimes finding things in the ordinance,
Yeah.
I have to paw around for a while.
Yeah.
An applicant's never gonna look at the ordinance,
I know,
and,
I have to,
and
I'm
so-
gonna talk to Nick, cause I don't know that this always occurs. Just like the DEP best management practice things, I don't know how often they get mailed out, so
Oh, really?
we will make a big note and stick it right on his computer. so
Yeah,
he
that,
doesn't forget.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too,
Cause it's not fair to them as well as it wastes a lot of our time.
right. Pete, did you have a question?
No, really. Gary took
It's
it.
okay? All right.
I
Yes,
have a
Craig?
question. Septics in a new shoreline zoning. What happens if the house is within 200 feet and the septic's 250 feet and the septic's beyond?
I'd say if the septic's outside the shoreline zone, you probably don't need to have a certification. I think, that's the way I would feel.
Don't they what?
Need to have it certified if the property transfers hands.
Oh,
Oh, is that the point of your questions? Oh, yeah, no, that doesn't only applies in the shoreline zone.
Right, so that's 250.
Yeah,
If
yeah, that's
outside
250.
250,
yeah.
So what's considered septic, just the field or is it the tank?
Yeah, because you got two parts.
our LPI would tell us.
Okay, you
What's-
pay somebody to make sure the tank's okay,
Mhm,
don't worry about the rest of it. I can't tell you, Joe, it's in the shoreline zone.
mhm.
So the leach field outside the shoreline zone, and
The house is just barely in it.
And the tank's right in?
I'm not sure where the
Just
tank
inspect
is.
the tank.
For conversation's sake, let's say the tank's just out, the house is barely in, at the edge of 250.
All right,
Right.
so,
So basically, you got a pipe that goes to the tank from the house. That's the only thing that's in, then the tank's out.
that's the only thing that's in is that pipe?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But just
tank
like-
might-
So the definition in the ordinance for subsurface sewage disposal system is any system designed to dispose of waste or wastewater on or beneath the surface of the earth includes, but is not limited to, septic tanks, disposal field.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So-
Can you have the tank inspected?
Yeah,
Doesn't make much sense.
I'm not sure the,
These, I'm really starting to get a lot of these now. Septic
Inspected.
certifications, yep,
well, that's good.
I got a
That
pile,
means people are just paying attention.
I got a pile of them.
That's good.
That's great.
Some pass, no, some don't.
It's all right, that's what we're looking for.
Yep,
It is. I'm fine with that ordinance, that doesn't bother me, yeah.
good deal. So are we prepared to go on to the wetland discussion? So Rich, do you have information that you can share with us about?
I
the-
do, and it's kind of somewhat of a mess, but anyway, just for your sake, Peter, we're talking about a wetland that's west on Messalance or Belgrade Stream, west of Hammond Lumber, that runs into the railroad tracks and up kind of toward the Minot Hill Road or whatever. The last time we met, we talked about the matter, and I had done a site visit of the quote wetland, and came back and said, well, Kevin was right, there really is no wetland vegetation, it's basically open water, at least on the south side or east side of the railroad tracks. And by the way, here's the wetland itself, I'll pass that down. The East Side Road, when I paddled in there, it was like all open water. And you had like maybe a little shrubby area along the shoreline for 5 or 10 feet where it's growing under the trees and whatever. And I came back to the board and said, geez, this is really just part of the stream, the river. And we decided at the time that, we can't really consider it wetland, because there's really no wetland vegetation. And then I went, looked at the wetland extends through a culvert or a square granite type man-made culvert to the north of it, and I indicated that wetland looked like a decent wetland from my perspective. But I said that I'd go back and talk to Keel Kemper to make sure that they actually looked at it, and they did. And asked if we weren't gonna zone the area south of the tracks, would this wetland as it is still be, well, put it this way, high enough value to you guys, it'd be worth the town zoning it resource protection? And he indicated, yes, it's the diversity of vegetation and stuff and the water. He said that, he also indicated that part of the reason that the more open wetland south of the tracks was rated as moderate or high is that it's partly due to the shape, if you will. A couple of different inlets where it bends around, and over here it does the same thing, goes up in there. They look at that in terms of configuration of the wetland.
Fringe effect.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I was prepared to, after meeting with Keel, I was prepared to come back and say, yeah, Fish and Wildlife anyway feels that that's a wetland worthy of resource protection. I went back out just a few days ago so I could get some pictures for the board. And I have to say that going out in June versus going out in the end of August, it's a whole different picture out there in terms of none of the, when I was out there, it was basically all open water in the south end. And I've got pictures here. We can gather around so we can look at it. I was hoping Nick was here. We could put it on the larger screen or whatever.
Sure.
But we turn it on and.
Corey's seen these, so.
So is the water higher later in the summer?
No, it's actually lower.
It's lower?
Although one of the changes is that beavers moved in, well, it was probably there all along, on the upper wetland, and they plugged the culvert up, and you can see in the pictures here
The
that
nature has changed it.
the elevation is higher on the upper side.
Yeah.
But this is, like, first I paddled all the way up and got out of the canoe at the base of the railroad tracks. I'm standing on the railroad tracks. This is the wetland to the north of the railroad.
So where about?
Oh, okay. I'm standing right here,
Mhm.
And that's a shot, oh, I'm sorry,
Other way.
that's the other way around. Here's Belgrade Stream, I drove, paddled up, got out, so I'm looking straight up the wetland here. That's the wetland we're seeing. Picture 2 is the same, I brought it in focus, not in focus, but I enlarged it by, what do you call it, anyway. What's that, zoom,
Zoom,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Picture 2 is taken right here, looking up the same wetland, that's, the other end. And then 3 is standing here, looking at this left-hand side of the wetland. So anyway, they're just a, you know, a good-looking wetland. Okay, let's see, where did I get, okay, yeah. And this is just a picture, see this blue line I put on the map here? That's a ditch. It's a ditch along the, so you can see the railroad tracks on the left.
Yep.
This ditch goes up here a ways, and
The ditch is a
I'm
ditch.
sure that this wouldn't look nearly as wet if the beaver hadn't moved in. Well, that was just, at one point in front of the culvert, they must have had a lift gate.
Oh,
to
yeah.
control water somehow, because there's like a chain down there where you could lift it up, but that's been all pulled out. And this is looking further up, there's like a little wetland piece right here. But I'm standing on the railroad track still. Here's looking back, I walked around across this area, across the ditch. Now I'm looking back, and notice the
Oh, yeah.
water elevation here is about probably 6 inches from the bottom of the
Mhm.
cement or concrete, granite, same picture. And this is, I just now just turned around and shot another shot of the wetland.
Or looking that way.
No, looking this way. I was
Oh, I'm sorry.
looking this way in this picture. I was standing here to look at the culvert. Now I'm just shooting out back up here. And this is that ditch that runs along here, and it goes up, and the beaver made a dam, which is why the water's high over here. This, in my mind, this is not anything that we would consider anyway, because it's just a ditch. Then the beavers dammed it up, that, it's kind of a forested wetland over there. That's the, same ditch, looking back toward the culvert. Okay, now I'm on the other side of the tracks, looking back toward Belgrade Stream, which is back here. This canoe is parked right there. So I got out and shot back. Notice the difference in elevation from up above to here. It's
Yep.
probably about a 16-inch difference in drop, so the dam
Significant.
is significantly holding that back. And now I'm paddling out toward Belgrade Stream. None of this stuff was here back in June. It all grew up since then. And this is, as the Belgrade Stream's over here, it's kind of a more open area. There's Belgrade Stream, where that line of trees is here, and there's a
Mhm.
boat up at a dock on the other side. This is the wetland, or the stream, if you will, coming in. Same picture there. And then another shot looking back. This is one of those fingers I was talking about. Why
Mhm.
Fish and Wildlife views it as one of the factors, is that they got these little inlets and stuff that are, and that's the end of it. So anyway,
Interesting. Thank you for getting out there.
the,
Is it working? There we go.
Okay,
So, Rich, who's Keel with, what agency?
Hugh Kemper, he's Fish and Wildlife, he's a regional biologist.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So where was the property that was in question with Kevin Hawes?
Oh, Kevin Hawes was this here, this whole piece. He owns, yeah, So basically, the whole area, except for that little nipple
No.
there, was Kevin Hawes. And, you know, my feeling, I have a hard time going back now to Kevin, and my thinking is to go back and tell him, while we're considering making it resource protection, I think you bonkers.
Yes.
Okay, so next question is, what are we gonna gain by making it resource protection? Because no one's gonna be able to build down there, so it'd just be forest harvesting, basically.
Right.
No one's
Which-
ever gonna be able to build. Over here it may be different,
Yeah, yeah, no,
but no one's ever gonna be able to use that land.
Yeah,
With
I
the-
mean,
with the
Kevin
laws
kind of
we have.
implied that he wanted to maybe do something there sometime, but I don't see how he can.
Yeah, and
the only way you could get to this really is get something through the tracks or go through Lad's property or cross over the stream, and there's no way he's gonna cross over the stream. He might be able to do it in the wintertime,
Yeah.
timber harvesting,
Yeah,
whatever.
but, you know, we talked about this whenever, back when, that the timber harvesting standards that he would have to meet from Bureau of Forestry don't change regardless of whether it's resource protection or just regular shoreline zoning.
so we wouldn't be gaining anything
Right.
by making it resource
Right,
protection.
not in that particular
And
regard.
then on top of that, I know there's different fingers, that to me is the difference between this and Belgrade Stream, other than the fact the stream is wider. But the type of vegetation we're looking at mostly in this area here is the same type of vegetation that lines the first 20 feet or so of Belgrade Stream. But I'm thinking, but really, I think you hit the nail on the head or whatever, is that no one's really gonna do anything other than timber harvest in there. And to go back and tell Kevin we're considering elsewise, I just don't think it would go over very well. Now, the other side, as you saw, it is a nice wet. And we wouldn't be zoning it because, we're zoning it, put it this way. It's what it comes under, falls under, it's a wetland associated with a river. Okay, it's Belgrade Stream, which meets the definition of a river, and all the wetlands that are affected by the river level during normal high water are considered part of the river. And so the resource protection says, resource protection shall include moderate and high-value freshwater wetlands and wetlands associated with great ponds and rivers, rated moderate and high value by
Yeah.
inland fish and wildlife.
Yeah.
With or without that beaver dam at the end of that culvert, it would still be, the elevation would still be there to keep it a wetland. And now, the other factor here is, and if we did this, I guess I would probably recommend that something that I didn't really think of at the time when we were met at this point, is the shore, you know, something I know, but I didn't think about it at the time. If we were to zone this wetland on the north end, resource protection, the shoreline zone goes for 250 feet. So around the wetland, it would jump across the railroad tracks and circle, if you will, that wetland for 250 feet from the culvert back toward Belgrade Stream, which again is Kevin's property. I'm thinking that if we were to continue to pursue resource protection zoning at this long wetland here, that in light of the railroad tracks and the fact that they're really not gonna do anything anyway, we've gotta put a zone there. We gotta keep a zone. Actually, it would go like this, really. It wouldn't cut across that. That we would start the limited residential district
At the railroad track.
at the railroad tracks and the resource protection district at the north end of the tracks. And Kevin would not be affected at all. Like you said, he's probably not gonna be doing anything but timber harvesting anyway, as far as protection of the wetland. But, I can't come in front of you tonight and say, Fish and Wildlife said that wetland on the north side really isn't that important. Just forget about it. So, my recommendation,
This side, you mean,
no, I'm saying that, how did I say it?
north side? Did you-
The north side is what I meant,
Okay.
that Fish
Right,
and
that's what you
Wildlife,
said. That's
I
what you
can't come back and tell you that they didn't say,
Yeah,
or
right.
just a negative, two
Yeah.
negatives, that,
But they're also saying this is of high and moderate value too. It's just, as Craig said, we're not really gaining anything by putting this into
we're
resource
not
protection.
gaining anything, and we've
Because
already told you.
Yeah, because it's basically landlocked.
Yeah, and we've
Or
already told you that
waterlogged.
we weren't doing it, and I'd have a hard time coming back 3 months later and say, hey,
Right.
Kevin, especially, like I said, knowing that it's probably not gonna get developed anyway. I can tell you, if you wanna go out there the first day of, for about 5 minutes anyway,
Duck hunting?
Duck hunting?
yeah, paddle up that thing, I jumped about 30 wood ducks going up,
Did you?
just up to the railroad tracks. But after 5 minutes, you're done for the day.
I had a bigger question. You know, why is the planning board getting involved in this? This is, why, do we have the authority to make a decision whether or not it's gonna be resource protection?
Well, we don't, the townspeople do.
The townspeople, do.
Yeah,
We'd have to
we-
bring it to the townspeople.
Yeah, I'd have to go to
Right.
vote.
okay.
But we can't make any
Yeah.
different changes.
So, yeah, so we
We
would
have
have,
the authority to propose it, because in fact, that's what our ordinance says, is
Right.
moderate and high value wetlands
Okay,
should be zoned resource.
so at this point, we're trying to figure out whether or not we're gonna make the proposal to do so.
Right, right, that's
Okay.
it.
And what that
Alright.
proposal would be.
Alright, okay, and if it goes, and if it does, if we do, if we, in this particular instance, we make a proposal to do it, what's beyond that, how do you bring it to town? Do you have public, meetings and all that
We
stuff?
would have to have, we'd have to draft a draft map, or show at least the portion that we're doing, what the change would be.
Right.
And we'd have to have a public meeting, and I guess the selectmen also have to have a public meeting at some point too, as part of the town process.
So it's a long process, just like when a
Yeah.
state agency goes from a law, to, takes the law, puts in rules, then the rules have to go to the, front of the public,
yeah.
basically,
In the broader context,
Yeah.
this was something we were discussing before you left, Pete, so you may recall it, that this, so if we made this change to the shoreline zoning map, at the same time, we'd be proposing changes to 2 other wetlands to delist them or delist them as no longer being resource protection, because Inland Fish and Wildlife no longer considers them of moderate or high value, so it'd
Okay.
be 3 changes we'd be making.
Okay, all right, you clarified my question, I just wanna make sure, it's in, we're not making the decision solely, you're just making.
Yeah, no, we're just making
recommendations.
recommendations.
And in fact, we would actually be starting almost from scratch, because when we proposed this resource protection zoning in the first place, we notified Kevin and Bill Wadley
Yep.
and maybe somebody else, but the 2 people who are truly affected by this, I don't think have been notified yet.
Yeah.
And if we were to pursue this any more further, we would have to get in
Redo that.
touch with the lads, and I don't know LaGrange, but that's who I've got down, is been told who owns that property.
So how much further would the protection go from what we already have in place? What would we gain, 50 feet or something, or
No,
75 feet?
it's already got limited right now it's got limited residential zoning around it.
Mhm.
So the zone depth wouldn't change, but instead of being able to build 100 feet from the wetland, they'd have to be like 250 feet.
So you'd gain 150 feet.
Oh, yeah, setback.
So it's a little deceiving, because when I did this map, this actually reflects the 250 feet.
The colored portion,
Yeah, it isn't, that much bigger. I believe that, I'm correct in that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And maybe that includes it too, but yeah, I think
Because
maybe.
the scale in this thing got really crazy, but
Yeah.
I calculated it, 1 inch equals over 1,100 feet,
Oh my, okay, so yeah, so.
because I had to go between road intersections to get it.
So you'd be looking at a quarter of an inch to get you 250 roughly,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. I mean, that's, you know, this is an incredible approximation, but
So,
It's an incredible job, George.
So Craig, what, I took more pictures than I thought. Essentially, if we were to put resource protection zoning on, this is the picture of the upper part of the wetland. It'd be from the edge of this forested area, and it goes back and makes a bend, and it's like a long, narrow one. It'd be from this edge here, back 250 is what you couldn't build in. Right now, it's 100 feet. The zone goes back 250, but the setback for building right now is 100.
So the setback
And
would be
the
the gate.
purpose of it is to provide a buffer, if you will, from significant human usage or whatever, noise or what have you, to the wetland itself for waterfowl habitat.
which seemed to
So it
be
really
a long
comes
way
down
on
to,
the
I
dock.
think, do we propose to put the resource protection zoning around the upper wetland, or do we keep it as limited residential? And if we do put resource protection, I would recommend that the area south of the tracks that stay limited residential from the tracks to the east, if you will.
A compromise.
Well, it's
It's-
a compromise, and
Yeah.
the, you know, the limited residential issue can be argued, although the trains really, they may affect it for 5 minutes, but the fact there's a track going through there probably is not a great disturbance to the wetland, if you will.
Yeah, I would say that it can't be considered any greater disturbance that has been already ongoing for however long the
Eons.
railroad has been there, so.
150 years or whatever.
I can tell you the snapping turtles use that railroad tracks because I found at least evidence of 2 snapping turtle deaths with the eggshells all over the place.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Kind of leathery things, not
Yeah.
like a bird shell.
I don't know, I don't think the gain is worth it. Yeah.
For the upstream wetland as well.
With, due to the location and where it is and what's the chances of anybody's gonna be down in there. I guess you can't go by that, but it's not in a very good appealing spot.
And you know, from the day-to-day perspective, I think somebody developing that in the near future probably isn't going to happen, but I'm not sure we can look at it that way.
Eventually it'll
Our
happen.
ordinance says,
How's the milfoil down there?
what's that?
How's the milfoil situation down there?
Belgrade Stream's full of it. I didn't really notice it further up, but.
Fortunately, you weren't using an outboard.
That, and I look at ducks on my dock and all the docks all the way down through there and all the little ducklings all season long shitting and moving all over everything. Not much affects ducks, you know, so
They're hardy, aren't they?
there's plenty of them and not much affects them. So I'm not very worried about ducks. The sandhill cranes, I'm interested in them. I've been seeing them a lot more lately.
I have too.
Um,
I see a lot more of those. Yeah.
Right in Smithfield mostly.
Mhm.
I mean, I would be concerned about them, but
I've been
they're
seeing more
coming
eagles.
back as well. So as it is right now, they're already making a comeback.
Which animal are you talking about now?
Sandhill cranes.
Yep.
Oh, you see them in Smithfield, they were on
Yeah.
Point Road the other day.
I see them all over.
3 of them,
Smithfield.
right?
No, there's pairs, there's a lot of them. There's more than just one group.
Oh, sounds great.
I've seen 2 pairs, and they're
Probably
2 different sizes, so I
different-
know it's 2 different pairs right in
Probably
Smithfield.
Cause I had 3.
One right on the corner, that corner on 225,
Yep.
where Knights bought all that, and the
Yeah.
garage is sitting up there. I saw a pair there. And I saw a pair going down Route 8 and towards Smithfield Village, that big long field on the
Yeah.
right there. If
Yeah.
you're going down towards, saw a pair up in there.
I guess I have a slightly, not surprised to you, slightly different view than Craig. I think now's the time, if we're gonna ever protect this wetland, now's the time to do it before there is already development down there. I mean, it is accessible from 135. Certainly, the one landowner already has a wood road going down there, because I know, because I've got Christmas trees down there. And, you know, I think it's a, you know, I would feel bad, just like Rich expressed, of us, you know, sort of going back on what we told Kevin. But I think Craig makes a pervasive, a very persuasive point that, you know, on that side of the railroad, in between that and the stream, where there's no access, land access, you know, that's unlikely to be developed for housing or something like that that would really impact the wetland and the wildlife species that depend upon it. And I'm not just talking about ducks, but I'm talking about bitterns and all those other things, some of which are threatened and having threatened or endangered status. So if we're gonna ever protect the wetland, now's the time to do it, not 20 years from now, not 10 years from now.
So if we do that, we do it, like Richard was saying, part in 2 different pieces. Not
Protect the
make the
north.
whole thing.
Right, yeah, I'm talking about the compromise,
Yeah.
or as you expressed it,
I
the
think,
compromise.
yeah. I think
Where, so it'd
basically-
be to the, you know, north of the railroad tracks exclusively.
So we could turn that into a proposal, and then let it go to public hearing, et cetera, and let the town decide.
Right, yeah, have it go through the process.
Feasible.
Yeah, it's reasonable, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thinking is that, for me, I wouldn't want to put a whole lot of weight on the likelihood of who's gonna do what, because I can't presuppose. This is my own thinking, I'm not saying that anybody else is wrong. Just, you know, the way for me to think about it is not to presuppose what anybody else might do or might not do. Is there a way to offer some protection? I think the answer is yes. I think by going with this, you know, this compromised solution is appropriate,
Yeah.
so that's what I would go for.
And, you know, we've talked about this numerous times in the past, but I failed to mention it again today, and that is simply that, you know, that we would be working towards making the ordinance more consistent with the comprehensive plan by, you know,
Yes.
not leaving a moderate high yield wetland designated by inland fish and wildlife as unprotected.
Also be making the ordinance more consistent with the language in the ordinance. To ignore that entirely, the ordinance says moderate and high value wetlands associated with great ponds and rivers. I don't know that we have a good answer for not,
Right.
you know, from a legal perspective, not zoning it resource protection. But I'm perfectly fine with anything below the tracks staying limited residential. It's just,
This wouldn't be an unbalanced approach, because again, we're being very consistent. We're looking at the wildlife value of the wetland based on the professionals' evaluation, inland fish and wildlife, and we're taking 2 wetlands and declassifying them based on that criteria. And in this limited respect, we would be adding this to resource protection, proposing to add it to resource protection.
Yes.
do you recall off the top of your head, one of them I think is the Great Meadow Stream wetland, is it not?
I know you've said that before, but I don't recall myself.
Where was that one?
That's the one up where the milfoil is up in North Bell, those
North
wetlands.
Bay.
What's
North
that?
North Bay of Great Pond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Where's the
Yeah.
Belgrade line start on that?
I'm not really sure, but any part that, I think that's one of the wetlands that if we have it in resource protection now, I think we can pull that off of there. There's.
I know you showed it to us on a map from
Yeah, I'm
Fish and
trying to figure out
Wildlife
what the
early
other
on,
ones
both those wetlands. I just don't recall where they're at.
Cause I don't think Belgrade's up by the stream,
are.
it's further in,
Yeah.
Yeah,
cause you have Smithfield and Rome.
Right.
But that bog's still all connected to the same, it's all still the same bog. So basically from where the line starts in Belgrade over to, Snake Point, you would say,
Mhm.
Bombazine.
Right.
Yeah. So we're not putting Sweet Dreams in resource protection.
no, they're in Smithfield, no question about it. It's no longer Sweet Dreams, it's called,
Well, a good portion
it's
of that.
Try, what? Try, huh?
I can't remember.
Try something or other, they changed names, changed.
Did
The
you
only-
change owners too?
Well, the
Yeah.
prior owner, he's holding the paper, he sold it, but he's holding the paper. So he, guess who really owns it? The same guy. But anyway, then they new operators.
Craig, you were gonna say something?
Well, I'm doubling back on it now. Some of that is in slope, protection, and what's that called?
Resource.
Slope resource protection.
Yeah, right, okay.
At least behind the hill there it is, because that's way beyond,
I'll make a motion.
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we propose to the town or work toward placing resource protection around the north half of the north portion of the wetland, the portion north of the Central Maine Railroad tracks. But anything south of the railroad tracks of that wetland shall remain limited residential on our proposed map.
Second,
So we got a motion, thank you, Rich, and seconded. Any more discussion? Rich, I wanna thank you for, doing all the homework, and Craig, you had gone up there too.
no, I didn't make it up.
I thought you made a.
I didn't have
I figured at the end, I'd just take pictures and show everybody.
Well, thank you for doing that, and also talking to Keel Kemper over at IFNW. Very much appreciated to get the the subject matter experts' input on those places. So that was very helpful. Anything else? All those in favor? Any opposed? So 4 in favor, 1 opposed.
I guess at this point, we should probably instruct Nick to notify the Granges, if that's who in fact owns the parcel, and the Lads, if they haven't already been
I thought
notified.
he told me he did.
Pardon me?
I think he said he did.
The Lads and LaGrange?
There was two others in addition to Wadley and Haas.
So we need to verify that those property owners have been contacted. I agree, Gary, that
I thought he told me.
had mentioned that others were. I'm not sure if those others were the same that we've identified tonight, but we have to kind of verify that.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so it's now on the record, we've been speaking about it, so if you don't mind just
Yeah.
reminding him, that'd be great. And then if they have not been, you would have to go notify them. You'll have to make some,
Then we would have to schedule another
right,
hearing or whatever it's called here.
yeah, yeah. Public hearing, isn't it?
I guess so,
I
yeah.
think so. Okay, anything else on those topics? If not, and if you can spare me a minute, I had a question for you. I wanted to ask you guys how you feel about this, or what you understand about this. This goes back a couple meetings. there was talk about, Hello Good Pie application that came in before the board, and there was discussion about the sign that they had. So my question to you, it has to do with the understanding of our ordinance, what is meant by sign footprint. I think is the way it's phrased.
Sign
Sign
Footprint?
footprint.
Is
And
that
I did the same thing, I'm like, what do you, and they pointed right to it. Cause it says like sign footprint, I don't know, 32 square feet or something.
Did
Something
they
like that.
say, that, or does the ordinance say sign?
The applicant said it, and then they pointed to it in the ordinance, and I found in the ordinance, there was the word footprint.
It should say square footage.
Yeah, it should be just square foot.
So, because,
I think they said it said sign though, didn't they? They claimed it says sign, the sign footprint.
The
Sign.
footprint, so the footprint would be underneath the sign.
Yeah, right, that doesn't make any sense.
32 square feet is pretty,
It should say square footage.
pretty good base.
Because that's what it's always been
Yeah.
in this ordinance,
So-
in that ordinance. I
right.
mean, I wasn't here for that meeting, but that's what it's always been, and
So I'm not sure,
do you have the section or the page?
I don't, I just thought of this as we were kind of wrapping up, but we can get to it, because this had to do with, commercial, right?
Yeah.
So that was, and Craig, do you remember me like being confused about that particular thing? So I was like,
Yeah, I remember that,
"Oh,
I was
Pete, do you remember that?
Right, and they couldn't, I couldn't understand it.
Because quite frankly, I didn't know if I was in error in thinking the sign size square foot, or is it the thing on the ground?
So if I have a 32 square foot cement base, the sign can be as big as I want?
Well, that's
Well,
what
that's what they're
claiming.
trying to say.
That
But their
should-
sign
That
was,
should have said square footage.
and that sign is, their sign they're proposing is smaller than what
We allow,
is, so that's not an issue,
no,
but they were talking about,
if that's
the
an error,
footprint.
Ground, right?
they talking, they could have gone bigger.
that's-
Right, and I was really
That should
confused.
be fixed if that's what it says.
So let me try to find you
Yeah,
guys.
it's on page 32 of the Commercial Development Review Ordinance, and that's what it says, footprint, area, and size, but
Yeah.
it, footprint should, it says 32 square feet, and
In
footprint,
footprint
area, in size. So I don't, that makes no
That makes
sense.
sense.
Makes
That's gonna be
absolutely no
changed.
sense.
So it's maybe no coincidence that it's 32 square feet in footprint on page 32, I'm just saying. So I was confused when we were talking about it, because in my head, I was thinking about the thing that is the sign, and they had pointed out, oh, footprint, that's the thing on the ground. I'm like,
Right,
geez and crow, I wanted to check with the board, because I just wanted to check, that's all.
Probably a minor amendment we ought to work on sometime.
Yeah, I know.
yeah, no, that's just
It-
bad
it's-
wording.
It seemed like the spirit and the intent of the ordinance was talking about the thing where you, the thing called the sign.
It's the display area, it's 32 feet.
Display area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, we just have to amend the footprint out of there, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think so,
Yeah, that's all.
if we're in agreement with what we're talking about.
So-
Yeah,
I think we are.
Okay. Have I flogged that to death?
'Cause-
Okay.
hey, Peter,
Yes, sir.
before we end the meeting, I got a question.
I got a bunch of
So-
stuff, so you're not gonna end the meeting for a while.
So,
Oh,
Peter, how did
well, I
that
had-
come
I
up
had a
in that
question for you.
application?
Okay.
Okay,
They had given a
you might be answering it for me, I don't know.
a drawing about the sign that they wanted to have.
Mhm.
And there was measurements and stuff, and it seemed like, Craig, am I wrong, it was within the 32 square
Yeah,
feet.
it was.
But they were talking about the footprint, and the engineer was pointing to that. I'm not blaming him, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
He
right,
was-
you was
he
confused,
saw that.
well, I can understand.
and I'm like, he's in the So, anyway,
And there is a definition of sign area, which talks about the, it doesn't say anything about footprint in there.
it's the display, right?
Clearly needs to be fixed.
So, thank you for indulging me in my question. Gary, you have a couple of things.
Oh, I'm working on Castle Island Road, guys parked about 19 junk cars over there. lo and behold, it's Ben, Ben's Auto.
Really?
On
Who is
Friend-
it?
That's not on the road, on a friend's lot. And I said, Ben, of all people, I've sent you to the planning board twice. What makes you think you could store 20 junk vehicles or unregistered, unserviceable vehicles over on the Castle Hill? So, trying to get them moved.
Who's the landowner?
Joey Lang, yeah, owns it. That Ben Morrison's vehicles. He just, he thought he was doing.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, he was doing him a favor. So I'm just doing him a favor. I said, well, the unfortunate thing is, I've been after you for 30 days and you're the one getting a letter offering to fine you because you are the property owner. So, we'll see how that goes.
Well, I noticed, between the beginning of the summer and midsummer, more vehicles had showed up.
19 the other day when I was there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And he's also got a satellite place down, or another
Augusta.
place down in Augusta
Yep.
now too.
I hope he moves it all down there. That'd be nice.
That would be, and actually a good location.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but
yeah,
the J&M
yeah.
logging or whatever they're called.
Okay.
I've had calls recently about this garage across the street that's for sale.
Yes.
I got a guy that lives in Mount Vernon, he wants to do auto restoration. I said, explain to me, I said, I'm 99.9% sure the planning board's not gonna allow you to do auto repair there because there's no way you're 300 feet from your neighbor's well. What do you do for auto restoration? He said, there's really no difference. I paint cars, I do body work, I might rebuild a motor in a race car. So I said,
Yeah.
I don't believe that they're gonna allow an auto repair in that building, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where the well is on the abutting
Well, he
property.
said it's nowhere near 300 feet.
Okay.
The town office is under contract, and the folks are filling out an application to come before you
Really?
for a secondhand consignment shop.
Really?
Oh.
Well, I'm glad for the town then, that
Yeah.
someone is interested. That's great news.
After all the controversy between, the gentleman down on, it's either Lake Shore Drive or Foster's Lane that had the issues with the house Clyde Fowler built.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's been in litigation in court several times, and it's been 3 years. So the resolution was, him and Clyde came to an agreement, and he bought the house. He bought the blue house at the end of the road that everybody was complaining about. Was
Who
on
bought
there.
it? Who
Huh?
bought it?
I can't remember his name, is it
Mike Everly.
Everly, Mike
Oh.
Everly.
I just inspected both of those houses.
Okay, my understanding
You did.
was, Mike Everly bought the blue one and the red one from Clyde. Mike Everly told, the town manager he was gonna move the blue house. I don't know.
Not right off.
Okay. I said, that isn't gonna be cheap endeavor.
You know, then they to find a spot for it. They're gonna continue to rent it to try to get some resources together. I don't know what the prices is. I would assume it was fairly cheap to buy them both. And they're reselling the red one.
You assume the Clyde sold it cheap?
No, well,
To settle out of a lawsuit, I would assume so.
I don't know what cheap is though, that's a nice piece of property. It's a nice house. Or I think it is.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. I'm like, damn, too bad. Okay, well, that's nice.
The only other thing I have is I got a guy down on Manchester Road that has been setting up a medical marijuana grow facility. So when I spoke with him, I said, do you realize that the town hasn't voted to opt in? Therefore you can't do what you wanna do? He came in with his two partners and had a meeting with Dennis, Anthony and I,
Yeah.
the other day. And he swears up and down, the opt-in law doesn't pertain to medical marijuana caregivers. And he supposedly is going to bring the town of Belgrade a letter from his lawyer which confirms that. So
He might be right.
I said, if you do, that's fine.
Yeah.
There's a good article in KJ a week ago,
Yeah, right.
within the week,
Yeah,
talks about that, I think, right?
yeah.
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 Becky gets the MMA periodical with legal notes, and there was a whole section in there.
Yeah, I've got it on my desk.
Yeah,
I read
and
it to
I,
me,
and
even.
that sounded like, you know, like you described, that the town has to opt in for all medical marijuana
Yep.
facilities.
He said-
which I didn't realize until
He
I
said
read
there's
that.
two of us that are gonna operate out of this building. He has 32 plants, I have 32 plants. No customers come in, none whatsoever. We deliver it to, I got 5 patients, he has 5 patients, and we deliver to their home.
Hmm.
So Gary, is that new metal building just before the alpaca?
Yes.
The
Got, Bob-
Joe's, or whatever, the mower shop, rather?
Yep, who's a good business, by the way, if you need to.
Yeah, no, I've used him, he is good.
Spencer, Jenny built that garage, and then he sold it to these folks.
Yeah, just another,
You know, it's funny, while that was going up, I was guessing that, what,
Oh, I knew
Yeah.
it was, I knew it was.
yeah.
Mhm.
is also, you know, the old double Ds, there's marijuana activity going through there.
Yeah, and I discussed that with you folks,
Yeah.
and
Actually, you weren't here back yet, I don't believe.
the planning board felt that that was a commercial use. It's still a commercial use. It really hasn't been changed from a commercial use, and therefore they weren't interested in him going to the planning board. And as far as the opt-in law, he's grandfathered, he's been there, what, 3 or 4 years, probably.
So it didn't, it changed from being a restaurant to be something else, so that was a change of
It's
use?
commercial to commercial to commercial.
Oh,
It didn't change to retail,
oh,
okay?
okay.
It actually went from
Retail.
retail.
Yeah, if
Right.
it'd gone the other way, it might have fallen under our jurisdiction,
Right.
actually.
Right, good
So,
point.
I didn't know that,
so there wasn't a lot of
okay.
Yeah.
concern, and you don't even know it's there, other than a car parked around the back of the building.
Well, supposedly people smell it in the summertime.
It does have one, it's got good lights in there, cause there aren't any windows open to.
No.
Someone
Boarded
broke
up.
into it, they boarded
Broke
it up.
in?
Yeah, someone broke into it, some teenager broke into it, did a lot of damage. So
Not-
then they boarded did a good job of boarding the windows up.
A building out there that's growing marijuana, there's no security system?
Some kid got interested in, supposedly some young teenager got interested in getting into it anyways. Of course, teenagers don't think things.
Well, I didn't know there was a kid in North Belgrade that smoked pot.
Oh,
I know, really, they're all angels.
Did you say didn't?
I got another question, you know, are you finished with your stuff?
Yep.
Okay, you know, across my lot, you know, I abut, the lot, you go up my driveway onto Horse Point Road.
Yeah,
To the left, there's been a road there, dirt road been going in there on the other side.
I noticed that too, Pete.
Yeah, so now it's all of a sudden, it's been widened and they're going back further than it was before. Before it was just going back maybe about, I'd say 50 yards,
so
Nah,
past your road?
Yeah.
It's been going back
No,
inland.
where's this road? Past your house? Past your driveway?
Yeah, between, going,
Going towards
Going
your house?
north.
yeah, right, yeah,
How far beyond your driveway is it?
maybe about 50 feet,
Yeah.
50 feet. On the right-hand side,
I think I saw it, I don't know what they're doing.
oh yeah, so it's been there about 3 or 4 years, and I thought it was, they're gonna do some logging and stuff like that. And then now it's got twice as, in the past month, it's gotten twice as wide and going a lot deeper.
Mhm.
It's out of the forested wetland, going up where it's dry, I walked up there, and I abut my back rock,
Yeah, I don't know.
that's that. I was wondering, do we have any jurisdiction over it? Did anyone come to you?
I don't, maybe someone's gonna build up there.
I don't know, so if that's the case, how do you get involved with it?
When they get ready to build, they need to come see me for permits.
Okay.
What's happening is David Stevens is putting leftover stuff up there from the soccer field down on Moulton.
Which,
Who owns that property anyways?
I don't know, moved it over to.
we'd have to look on the map. So,
I thought one of the Cooks, Cooks family
Oh,
owned it.
maybe.
Possibly so.
Could
So-
have changed ownership, I don't know, that's 10 years ago. I don't know.
so that dovetails to a question I had too, cause remember, like a month ago, they
Camp
started,
Road?
yeah, they started doing stuff, I'm like, holy crap, they're moving
Yeah.
some dirt.
I talked to David about it. David said that was an existing soccer field. It was all beat to hell. Grass was half dead, all trampled and
Sure.
poor shape. So we're just redoing the soccer field. Hauling in all new loom.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it looks nice. If you,
Well, they actually scraped the loom off and then screened it and stored it, and now they're hauling it back.
Yeah.
it looks wicked nice.
So it's the same loom that was there.
It's all back 250 feet.
And I'm sure that they're probably gonna roll out the grass versus plant it.
Right, cause we're September now. so-
Well, and that's what they did on the ball field.
Right, right.
So that's all, nothing within 250 feet though, this, what's going on now?
It's not within 100. It might be within 250, but it's not within 100. There's no soil
So if it's
disturbance.
within 250, it's any kind of activity have to come to the planning board because it's in shoreline zoning?
They're just rototiller field.
I don't know.
It's
I don't know
not
what's
in
going on.
commercial use.
I don't
It's
know.
not like they're bringing in fill or anything.
They're hauling it out, screening it, and bringing it back.
No.
It's gotten higher,
No, it hasn't.
has it?
Even if it has, that's not a planning board issue. It's not a planning board issue.
But Pete, I would say it has gotten higher.
Yeah.
To me, it seemed like the elevation has come up.
Yeah, it's gotten higher.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought any
I'm
type
not-
of activity like that, it's within 250 feet, it goes in front of the planning board, not just the code enforcement officer.
It doesn't even come to name.
It's within 250 feet, everything has, any kind of activity that comes to the planning board. No? Okay,
No, not everything has to go to the planning board. There's not a planning board requirement for you to review a redo of a soccer field.
I don't know,
It's not they're not constructing a new soccer field, they're just fixing the one that's there.
all right.
The only time filling and earth moving comes to the planning board if it's greater than 10 yards in a stream protection district or a resource protection district.
Which it isn't.
Okay,
But that's a good question, though.
yeah, I don't know.
It's a fair question, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, all right.
Well, those are good updates. Anything else that we should know about?
I hope not.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other news? Not to share, okay. I think with that having been said, it's,
Yeah,
good.
made it 9 o'clock.
Yeah?
Anybody wanna stay and do a radio broadcast?
We could. I think we should probably hit the off button or close button.
Do you have to? I did.
Nick started before we left, and I'll just go look to see if there's a way to stop it. It probably is.
While you're here, I just gotta run out my card and my keys. I walked in.
Don't forget to say, over and out, Roger Wilco.
Yeah. Thank you, you just did.
So what happened to your knee?
It's actually my Achilles tendon, I had surgery on it back in July.
Oh,
I had to get it repaired, and
what'd you do to it? How'd you hurt it?
I have no